fights. Sandor Martin, Alberto Puello. Sandor Martin's been waiting to fight for this title for a minute now. Made some good step aside money. Now he's got to fight Puello, who upset Gary Antoine Russell, who's fighting for the WBA title later on the card. Anyway, who do you got, man? Puello or Martin? I'll let you start first. You are Dominicano, like Alberto Puello is. So
So yeah, hopefully I don't sound too biased, but no, it's a good fight. You got two really educated southpaws. I think Martin is very reliant upon like that little check right hook. He was throwing it a lot against Teofimo Lopez.
dropped him
Um,
with it.
Dropped him with it. A lot of people thought he won that fight. He beat Mikey Garcia a couple years ago when he was older and whatnot.
Retired him technically.
Technically retired him, yeah. But I like Puello in this fight. I think Puello. Funny enough with Puello, Sean, is when you go and you really watch the tape on Puello, I actually do think he is slept on. Like he's very good. Tall, long, rangy, very educated counterpuncher. I think the way this fight's gonna look, Sean, is you're gonna get two very educated southpaws waiting each other out, and it's gonna be a chess match. You might even get some boos and people saying it's a boring fight, but I think that Puello is the more versatile counterpuncher, and I think Puello is going to find holes in the Sandor Martin defense because it gets repetitive the way he likes to pick his punches. His punch selection is very repetitive, and I just think Puello will be able to find holes in his defense, and he should beat him. I think so.
Well, I mean, this is literally a 50-50 fight at the betting books.
Is it? I
It
mean,
is. This
okay,
and Ryo and Russell are
yeah,
both basically 50-50. No one, I think the biggest either fighter is on either fight is minus 110 at the most. So
okay,
very, very super even odds. And me and you, we're known as the Turkey Al Sheikh haters, but to give credit where it's due, that competition coming from Saudi, it like we just had a tough time breaking down all the fights this last weekend on Better Be at Bivol because there was a lot of 50-50s thrown at us. We got a couple 50-50s thrown our way, and that's because competition is a good thing. Competition, makes all the competitors have to breed their best products. So we got a couple of 50-50 ones on this card. Not in the main event, but in this one. So I'm actually with you. I'll give the edge to Alberto Puello, but that's despite Martin having some advantages. Martin has the better feet, and Alberto Puello is kind of likes to either hold his ground in the center of the ring or he likes to give the step back game. He likes to be
yeah,
on the back foot a little bit. So I don't know. He doesn't have the quicker feet than Sandor Martin, so he's gonna have to be the guy that takes the step forward. He's gonna have to be more the aggressor than the other way around because Sandor Martin's quickness with his feet is an advantage for him. And Sandor Martin is also the better sniper between both of these guys. When you talk about pot shotting or really placing one or two punches at a time, I think he's a little more crisp and compact than Puello, who's got that tall frame and those long arms that make his shots a little bit less compact than Sandor Martin. But despite everything I just said, one thing Puello's got in his favor is he's very tall and he's long in this division. He's a big super lightweight. And Teofimo Lopez and Mikey Garcia, while they're way bigger names with way more accomplishments to their names than Puello, styles make fights. And those guys were shorter guys with shorter arms who had to reach for their punches a lot. And Sandor
yeah,
Martin thrives off that, thrives off making you reach, taking a half step back and frustrating you and setting up what he's going to set up. Puello, with his height, shouldn't find it as difficult to find Martin and touch him because he may not have to reach because of his length. He knows that anytime Martin tries to touch him, he can touch him too because of his long arms. And I think he's the better combination puncher. I gave Martin as being credited as the better sniper, the better pot shot guy. And go ahead, BT. It looks like you gotta jump in with something.
Puello puts them together better, and
Yep.
what's really interesting is that when Puello fought Gary Anton Russell, I think one of the paths to beat a guy like Puello is you gotta close the gap and go to that body. Gary Anton Russell had some success when he did that. The referee called a low blow, I believe it was in the 10th round, and it was a borderline shot, it was on the belt line. If Martin had like a sustained body attack to speak of, like if he had those type of skills, I would give him a bigger chance. But I just think that like eventually, like Puello's gonna have to come forward, and I think he's gonna eventually get Martin at the range he wants, and just find he's the more intelligent counterpuncher of the two. As to where Martin, he counterpunches very well, but he counterpunches well with one singular punch.
Well, Gary Antoine, though, and we'll get to that fight in a minute, him and Rayo. Gary Antoine, who I like a lot, he's just not rangy. So,
No, no.
of course, he had to get to Puello's body. It's conceivable you could beat Puello in a different manner than Gary Antoine went about it if you have different attributes to Gary Antoine. There's a scenario here where because Martin has the quicker feet, that Puello has to get out of his comfort zone, has to come forward more than he really wants to, and he gets counterpunched with those single shots, sniping him in between him trying to run those combinations. That's why it's a 50-50 fight. Martin could definitely be the better guy and take this thing home. He's the bigger name because he's beaten bigger names. But I'm
Yeah.
with you. I'm with Puello because he's got to make Martin fight a little bit, which isn't easy against a
No,
guy
no.
with that kind of movement. But
Yeah.
ultimately, if he can in the second half of the fight, and he speeds the pace up a little bit, that's going to favor Puello. And I also think Puello may have a little, may have a little more dog in him in the championship rounds. He'll be the guy with the judges. It's going to be a close fight. It's going to be a competitive fight. And in the home stretch, the judges might favor Puello for taking more of the initiative, for being a little bit more the aggressor and letting his hands go a little bit more. And that cost Sandor Martin against Teofimo down the stretch of their fight. I'm going to give the edge to Puello.
Okay. And I think what also plays well in Puello's favor is the fact that like when he lands shots, they're very clean and effective shots. Not Sendo does too, but I just think Puello, like when he fought Gary Anton Russell, if you go and you just read the comment section of YouTube, people that thought he won, the reason they say he won is because he was placing the shots real nicely. He was laying the cleaner, more effective shots. As to where Gary was just pressing the action and was kind of ineffective in spots of the fight. So I think those same things are in play here when he does fight Sandor Martin.
All right, so I'll take him by a very competitive decision against Sandor Martin. Wouldn't be surprised if Martin, that's why it's a 50-50 fight, but I will give the edge to Puello. I think he'll outwork him a little bit down the stretch. Might have to come from behind.
I think I'm gonna pick Puello to win, but I think it's gonna be like by like a controversial decision. Like I think
Where
it'll be
Martin feels he got robbed and
yeah.
yeah.
And we're gonna get another one of those really great WWF style promos from him. Remember when he told Tio he's like he's a what did he say? I'm a boxer, and he said what did he say? I forgot what he said. He's a talker or entertainer or a movie star. He said something about Tio. He was calling him fake pretty much. And he said I'm a real fighter. He's fake.
I forgot that in the midst of Tio's "Do I Still Got It,"
Yeah,
line that night. Yeah.
yeah. I had to go back and revisit it, but he dropped. I remember he dropped a really good promo at the end of the fight. He was pissed.
What's cool for these two guys? These are two guys you would probably choose to duck rather than fight. Even though
Yeah,
Martin's gotten a couple big name fights, and they're fighting for the glamour belt. They're fighting for the WBC for the green belt. So good for these two. I'm sure the WBC would like a larger 3% of someone. I'm sure if they had it their way, it'd be Devin Haney versus Teofimo, and they'll take that 3%, or Devin and Ryan a rematch at 40.
or yeah,
But
right. Yeah, definitely right. Yeah, definitely those fights because they're not going to make anything off these guys. But look, we always talk about how corrupt boxing is and how corrupt the WBC can be. But look, we have these two higher risk, low reward guys
getting an
from country.
opportunity.
They get an opportunity on a big platform. It's
Yeah.
on a card that actually is going to be seen. They'll be seen.